Hello, Meet. How's it going? I guess it's good afternoon in EST. Welcome to Bags2Riches. How are you feeling today?
I'm good, Janish. Good to be here. It's a nice afternoon here after the snow, and it's kind of sunny, so pretty good.
So I appreciate you taking some time off today and getting on the platform to discuss your journey and to give more insights about how you went from a scientist to a leader. So, thank you for joining in. And to start and kick us off with this conversation, I would appreciate if you give a brief to the audience who would be watching you on what are we going to discuss today, a brief introduction of yourself, uh, and we can start with that.
Sure. So I've been in pharmaceutical industry for about 20 years. I started as a scientist and working up towards becoming a leader. It's a journey that I've been on. And when you reached out, I was kind of interested to provide some insights into what might help people learning new perspectives or what could be beneficial for them in their lives or careers. And a few people resonate with me more than the others and might be for different reasons, right? Because of the being a student coming into the country and kind of charting the way up in the career as well. And some people just resonate because of the background as to like it's just kind of sometimes it's inspiring when you see somebody doing something that shares a similar background to you. So I kind of found it very interesting, the Bags to Riches kind of the name, and it kind of it takes me back to the memory of like me coming in with the bags, and those days airlines used to have like three bags you could carry, so that was one complimentary for the students, and it was all full of
Yeah.
spices and the cooking utensils and stuff. And then, well, riches is a big word, so it's kind of I would say backs to progress maybe. But looking forward to sharing the insights.
Absolutely. I should have thought more about giving the name to the podcast. But you're just being modest. I know you have this amazing journey that you have had. As you said, people would resonate more with you, especially people coming in internationally and trying to make something of themselves out here, which seems like a fantasy world in the beginning, but once they get here, once the reality hits, it becomes really difficult to thrive. So you're no longer thriving, but just surviving every day, right? With those uncertainties and whatnot. So appreciate you, and I feel the same way when I looked at your profile as like, okay, this person has come in from a background similar to me and have made amazing progress. So thanks for giving that overview. And for the beginning, let's start with your journey coming into the US. What were your aspirations when you first landed here, and how much did you already know about the pharmaceutical industry, and what completely boggled your mind?
Yeah, sure. So when I started, I was here as a student and was also focused not just the studies but to look into what's going to come ahead. And this is in honesty the story for many people as to like, yeah, I'm going to get the degree, I'm going to get the education, but what's going to be in addition to that, right? So kind of keeping it still on the shorter term focus and saying, okay, do the best in the studies, but also look for opportunities to gain some experience while you are in the country, while you don't know if you're going to stay forever or not, right? So um, parents thought I might be back in after my studies, and that was their hope. And I think they're still hopeful I might be at some point. I don't know, but now I think they gave up. But that's been the story, right? So learning stuff on the go, and kind of looking for opportunities to work. Don't have many relatives here in the country, right? Like don't have the blood relatives as we call it. So just had to work. But friends were the biggest asset, and then trying to find connections in the university with the professors and um, the seniors and stuff to get into any opportunity that would give you experience and exposure to begin with was kind of the focus. Was lucky enough to find some co-op opportunities while doing the studies, right? So, and it was not the best of the times to get out in the market after graduation in 2008. We used to
Hmm.
have we had a big crash in the market, right? The financial
Yeah.
crash that we call it, and then there had a lot of layoffs and stuff, and we had to go through that. So. Um, it's not easy to get in as a student as a break in the industry, but I kept looking into opportunities to be an intern or a co-op, um, and a few things worked better, like some clarity in communication
Hmm.
discussions, interviews and stuff, that got me through the campus into a co-op opportunity. That kind of paved the way to get into industry, because you gotta get your foot in the door, and then you kind of figure out how you go
Hmm.
from there, without having to worry about this is gonna be the end goal that I'm trying to achieve. So
Hmm.
start somewhere small and then try to work it up was the approach.
Got it. So that's all we can know. I'd assume, did you have any prior experience in the pharmaceutical industry before coming to the States?
So I worked a little bit in India after bachelor's, but that was just like a small time frame, just to gain some exposure of how things work, but not necessarily like the big experience, or the how things work in a grand scheme of things in pharmaceuticals was kind of all I
Gotcha.
learned here. So majority of the experience has been in the US, if not all of it.
Okay. So when you come here and you start your co-op and you also get into these big pharma industries later in your career, what has been your biggest cultural or professional shock that you got? What was the biggest challenge once you entered into this industry and you're like, okay, I got it. But then people think that's it. That's the end of the goal. But that's really when things start to stir up, right? So how has your experience been?
Yeah, I mean, initially you're more focused on learning stuff, and the learning curve is steep in the beginning where you're kind of everything is a new learning. So you're more focused on kind of learning stuff and focused on the technical aspects and stuff. But then you learn about the people dynamics that comes into the industry, right? As to kind of how things play out together, working with other groups and other departments and stuff. That was one aspect that was kind of new, and it has been ever evolving in terms of learning.
Hmm.
Um, Also, different kinds of business models, right? So started with generics, and that's kind of one way of looking at the industry. But then as you look into other types of businesses,
Hmm.
consumer health, pharmaceuticals, branded pharmaceuticals, and stuff. You look at things differently for each kinds of business models. So kind of learn a little bit around how one model works versus the other. Um, in the beginning, it's been all about the learnings for me, just trying to learn as to what is the technical aspect of the business, and also looking at adjacencies in parallel to expand my
Gotcha.
knowledge.
Yeah, no, that's great. And well, while you were talking about it, now I have seen that you have, starting from there, you are now a director at a big pharma company. And what I want to really understand from you is, now that you're here, when you look back, what are some assumptions you would have made in about the pharmaceutical industry that were completely wrong?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Because you would think that you are at some point in in the pharma industry, you are going to learn enough that you would be more into the administrative aspects of the leadership, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's in every industry, not just pharma, but you're going to have continuous learning. And the the way leadership is thought of sometimes is like, okay, you have a title and you got people, you got groups, and now you're just managing stuff,
Right.
which is not correct. You're gonna look at um, continuously learning and making an impact, on the projects as well. So there's
Hmm.
like this hands-on, hands-off balance. And I feel like sometimes when you're down there, you look at leadership roles as just doing management and leadership versus doing stuff right yourself. And it's just kind of, you may not be doing stuff yourself all the time, but you're down there trying to make an impact on the stuff on the business that you're working in.
Right.
So it's just kind of that's something I earlier thought that at a leadership position you're going to be kind of managing but not really looking at stuff. But as I was doing it, I'm like, I'm constantly involved and I'm
Hmm.
constantly learning as well in the process. But that's a huge aspect as it comes to the execution of the
Correct.
projects or the business, right? So that's kind of false assumption, but sometimes people carry that, and I probably had that early on.
Hmm. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And now that we have talked about you being a director, I want to get you back to the time when you were still in formulation sciences and you're deep in it, right? Early in your career, what made you think that that can be a good career choice? Why did you take it? What was your belief and what was your thought process behind it?
Sure. So I didn't start as a formulation scientist. I started as a validation specialist. And
Mm-hmm.
then my next job was at Sun Pharmaceuticals, where I was actually hired as a production supervisor,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of rolled into the tech services role, which is kind of between development and manufacturing. So you're more kind of in the transfer phase. And then while I did that 6 months, I was like more gravitated towards like the research and development, the formulations, like where you start from scratch and develop something versus just transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that's where I would want to start. And then
Mm-hmm.
eventually you can do it all and you can start to kind of expand and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of negotiated this with my manager then to say, I would rather want to be in this space where I can develop stuff from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problems doing the technical transfer stuff eventually, but like would like to be in this space as well. And have been lucky enough to find opportunities and leaders who kind of provided that background, right, on
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. So I was kind of negotiating one way, but there was a potential aspect that the management saw as well. So kind of jumped into that. And then all of the curve has started from there into the formulation development and then eventually everything up to the filing, right? But you're starting also the small companies, the company might be big, but the opportunity, the place where you work at is small. It's starting as
Right.
still a startup, and there are more things to learn than just one. So although you are a formulator, can you look for other things beyond just doing formulation development? So you can see through the entire life cycle of the product and the project that might provide wider perspective.
Got it. So, how many years did you spend in formulation sciences?
So formulation sciences has been the core formulation sciences role has been quite a bit, about 12, 13 years just doing that.
Okay.
But like I said, in the startup phase, you don't have dedicated groups doing one
Right.
thing only. So I had that opportunity of kind of looking at everything while doing formulation science. So it's kind
Right.
of hard to kind of fragment stuff, but it's more 10, 12 years was kind of what I would call as the role was defined as formulation.
Right. Now that's the reason I'm asking you this is because it's very interesting to me the formulation sciences outside of R&D is not that much appreciated, right? And then once you come to the early stage, late stage development of this drug, it is very difficult to make non-technical leaders per se to understand the importance of it. So how was your experience dealing with it now that you also look at it from the bird's eye view, but you've also been on the floor doing that formulation science?
Yeah, so from a bird's eye view, you know everything down there, how things work. So it's just kind of helps knowing what used to be the formulations development role in the early stage, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
nowadays there is more of this early stage, late stage fragmentation in terms of the organizations. But there had been times where we were doing everything early stage, late stage, filing and everything together.
Right.
So it's been more like um, knowing a little bit of everything while you're trying to strengthen the area that you're working in. But now that I look at it from a bird's eye view, I think it's kind of helpful to start in a specific area which is more technically involving, and then going
Hmm.
up and looking at stuff.
Got it. So, yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Now, keep going.
So when you said that you were in these positions and you were doing various projects at once, right? Was there a specific project that kind of helped you pivot to a leadership role or position, or that was your aha moment? Okay, this is a project that can allow me to position myself in a way that I can go in a direction where I can lead people instead of just doing the science, so to say.
Sure. So I would say there were aha moments from a technical perspective more than a project giving me the leadership opportunity. Uh, but I kind of focused on maintaining leadership in every project that you worked on rather than looking for a leadership position and then trying to impact. Right. So
Right.
there had been many projects that provided me visibility and a
Mm-hmm.
direct impact potential for one of the extended release projects, how you would do the tablets and how you would make it extended release over 12 hours and stuff was
Mm-hmm.
kind of new in those days for me as a beginner, right? And I'm looking back now, have done multiple projects. It looks like an eyeballing stuff, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
um, in those days, it provided me visibility. We were working with leaner organization structures back then, and it helped in some aspects in gaining visibility and trying to be able to make an impact directly. And this is one aspect that helped me from a leadership perspective is to kind of be able to work on stuff that you might still be an individual contributor but provides you much more visibility in the matrix organization and be able to work directly with the leaders of other functions and stuff
Right.
and that kind of opens things up as you're kind of more prone to um, communicate clearly, lay out the milestones, deliver updates, progress, provide your ideas, thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
etc. So just kind of builds a lot of confidence and also gives the visibility to the other functional leaders to towards you. So
Right.
that was one project that's kind of started it all. And then kind of it kept going on and on with multiple projects.
Got it. And that the one very important thing that I heard when you were talking about is visibility. And of course, this wasn't planned for you. This came in naturally with the projects and ownership that you took for different kind of projects and workflows and whatnot. But now that you are, at a leadership position, you look at a scientist who's probably at your position when you were 10, 15 years back, right? They understand the science really well, but they don't understand the visibility aspect of it, and they do want to go ahead and be a leader in the upcoming times. What would your suggestions be to that person who's really good at their job, but they have some room for improvement? Let's just
Yeah.
put it that way.
Sure. So nowadays the organizations are getting leaner and it's more the matrix style working environment. And when I say nowadays, it's been there quite a while as I've been
Yep.
operating in as well. But back when I started, it was not quite the same, right? So you have much more of a hierarchical structure where a scientist is doing the stuff, which is kind of good, right? That's what you should be doing, and that's what uh, your most interest is in. But you got to look at um, now with the matrix organizations, you're working with other function and the other functional leaders, also your functional leaders directly. And there is kind of from the natural way of working, there is more visibility and the organizations are leaner, as I said. So you
Hmm.
got more opportunities to look to get more visibility, and visibility shouldn't be taken as a wrong in a wrong way, right? So
Absolutely.
sometimes I tell people like I want to get some exposure, but you want to be careful not to get exposed as well. So you don't
Nice.
want to just do stuff as like, okay, I'm doing it to kind of just maintain visibility and just look across look nice across the organization, but you got to look at like at the end of the day, everybody will see what value you bring to the table, not
Mm-hmm.
like the flashy things you might be doing around to get visibility. So I know in no shape or form I kind of say that you should get visibility at any cost, but I
Mm-hmm.
would rather say that you should try to do work, but at the same time be able to articulate what you're doing, how it aligns with the business
Mm-hmm.
and the business goals,
Right.
and you should try to obtain visibility that way. So people who are trying to work their way up and kind of try to get make more impact on the visibility side should kind of look to to do the work and be able to articulate and show how it impacts the business or how it makes an impact in the business, right? Or how you
Right.
could do things differently that could change the outcome of the business or the project, and eventually you can see that one more thing on that is the you might find some leaders who promote this more than the others,
Mm-hmm.
and it's you sometimes you can't change your leader. Sometimes you
Yeah.
can, right? And it's kind of sometimes luck. Sometimes you find some leaders who promote your visibility and who kind of make sure that your work is seen
Right.
across the organization. So look for those if you can and try to work for them.
Right. Now that's amazing advice, and I think it's a golden nugget for anyone who is starting out, or maybe is 4 or 5 years in. They're doing that their technical job perfectly well, but there's no growth. Right. So just for the audience and for their better understanding, if I was a formulation scientist working under you, you see that I'm an amazing scientist. I do all my experiments really well. I have the data to show to people, but I just don't know how to say it in front of the larger audience, right? How would you mentor me, lead me to understand what the business needs and what are the things that I need to say in a business language rather than a scientific language?
Yeah. So most important thing you said is you would come to me and ask.
Hmm.
And that's the onus on an individual, right? To look for ways to get the feedback and work with not just leaders, but with peers and whoever you can, right? To get that feedback or understanding of how you could do things better. What I would suggest is you would want to look at your audience first, who you are showing the data. You could be showing your data to a marketing person, you could be showing your data to um, a regulatory person, you could be showing your data to a supply chain, and they all have
Hmm.
different stakes, or you could be showing it to all of them together. But you got to
Right.
gauge your audience first as to who you are pitching to or presenting to, because you have to see what is in their best interest and you need to provide some of what they are looking for to
Hmm.
them rather than you're trying to show what you got to show. So oftentimes I see people thinking that they have done brilliant work and they're kind of so much bogged down in presenting their data, but you got to look at the marketing person on the other end is more looking at like, how can I sell this stuff, right?
Hmm.
So at that point you might want to keep it shorter on the technical side and be more presentation should be more oriented on the commercial side of things as to like, wow, by the way, you could sell it this way, you could sell it that way, and stuff like that. Having said that, your story is still the same. If you are a technical person and you have done the technical work, that's what you got to show. But you can orient the presentation a bit towards
Hmm.
the audience, and that helps you gain more support from the audience.
Absolutely. Uh, so when we talk about this matrixed organization, it kind of is super confusing with people who are used to this traditional management style. And more likely than not, I have seen this issue is with matrix organization, people with influence would have more power than people of authority. How does someone navigate through this thing? I'm sure you would have faced it some point in your life, where people are more influential, but you have more authority for a particular project. So how does like that work out?
I think it's important to be more influential than being more authoritative, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of in the matrix or organizations, it's important, it's helpful in a way that you don't have all of your authoritarian people sitting on the table all the time in every
Mm-hmm.
discussion. So you got to look at influencing people at your level or who work on the project with you, and be able to win that confidence, right? Or whatever you're trying to argument about. So just kind of influence is a huge deal. And it's more important than authority in matrix style, as you said. And you should not just be looking at, okay, I have a vote of confidence from somebody of authority, I'm gonna win this battle or the
Mm-hmm.
argument, because you need that alliance and the influence across the people of your um you, of your peer group, right?
Right.
So that's, I think, how I have viewed. In my opinion, I've always been able to maintain influence in a way in the matrix teams, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
process. It's a learning. Sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. And sometimes you got to understand where things are coming from. Sometimes things are coming from authoritarian positions, and
Right.
that's percolating into the matrix team environment, and you got to respect it.
Right. So when you talk about influence is more important than authority, in some of the cases when you look into pharma business cases, how can someone work on increasing or enhancing their influence over the organization or people?
So if you can say, if you bring value to the table, people
Hmm.
see it. Um, Lots of things. This is a big um, power pack question, as I would say. So if I put a lot of, so one thing is, if you are able to work with people,
Hmm.
people want to work with you as well.
Right.
And it's a personality trait. Not everybody gets it, and everybody
Hmm.
has it naturally. But in matrix environment, you're going to have to work on it. In general, whether it's matrix environment, whatever environment that is, you have to be able to work with people. Although not everybody has the same personality trait, right? So so build confidence and trust in people, and that will help you push your agenda through
Hmm.
in the influence world, right? So you got to look at, how do I, so if the other team members, they see that you're trying to bring a point that makes sense, you're trying to not
Right.
just win over others or talk over others, and stuff. In my opinion, if you build trust, if you work with people, try to be kind of nice. Last thing I would say is energy. If you
Hmm.
bring a positive energy to the table, people see it. People see that you're trying to make an impact on the business. It's not about you, it's not about
Hmm.
others, it's about the business at the end of the day. So the positive
Right.
energy is contagious, and if you put that on table, people will work with you, and they will say that, oh, by the way, I don't like everything he said, but maybe he's doing it in the spirit, in good spirit for the business. So that might help
Right.
out.
Yeah. No. So one thing that I learned when you were talking about this is letting go of your ego. It's not about personal agenda. It's not about personal wins, but it's more about how you can make an impact in the business. And I feel at the end of the day, if you are putting your customers first, especially in the pharma industry, and you're thinking in a way that you are keeping your patients first than anything else, than any other personal agenda, it might take you much farther, have much more influence over people because you come from a better place. all your thinking, your thought process, your opinions are coming from a better place than people thinking about, oh, I need to win this battle, because I have been doing this for 20 years and I know so much about it. I know I'm right. So yeah, that's amazing. And I want to touch some points on your leadership style. And now that you have grown into a leader, but also when you used to be an individual contributor, and now that you're a people leader, you're away from your experiments and whatnot. How does the definition of success has changed over the time?
Sure. So when you are leading a group and leading a team, doesn't matter what size it is and what shape the team is of, but you're looking, your success depends on the success of others, and their success depends on you. So that's the most important thing to realize, that it's not about you doing stuff and you impacting the business. It's got to be for them as well, and what they do would impact you. So
Hmm.
you have to look for ways where your team can effectively contribute, um, and keep other noises out of the system. And it happens sometimes in large organization. There will be noise, and you got to understand where the noise is and try to reduce it. So this is what um, Jack Welch said once, right? That your job of a leader is to be the guy who is walking with a broom in front of the curling stone, and is constantly kind of cleaning up in front to make sure that the stone falls in place.
Uh-huh.
And that talks about execution, right? You got to be down there. A lot of times leaders think that I laid out a perfect strategy and now things are going to happen. They never happen, because on execution side, your team needs you every day, right? So you're going to look at ways of like cleaning up stuff for them in the front, and making sure that things get accomplished. They get what they want. Um, and this is where I don't believe in just the management style that we just talked about earlier, as like, okay, I've got a team, I got structure, I got strategy, and now I will go off and just do the strategy and let team do the execution. uh you got to do stuff.
Hmm.
Doing stuff doesn't mean you are making stuff on the bench, but doing stuff means you are there looking at stuff closely as it's being done. And it could be the help that the team needs. It could be sometimes you don't have all the know-how to support a task, right? You
Hmm.
kind of think that you're a leader, but you don't know everything. So you're gonna have to find avenues um, to get that help,
Hmm.
whether it's within organization, outside of organization, academia, wherever you can go and get help from. But that's one of the things you need to do for your team, to look for resources and provide it to them. That those are the things I would say from a leadership perspective are important in my style, as to not
Right.
just work on the strategy but also look at the execution.
And I'm sure all the things that you've been talking about doesn't come in easy. Uh, you learn it over time, with experience and whatnot. For you, what has been the biggest shift when you go from individual contributor to a people leader? What changed? What kind of mindset shift or your core beliefs have shifted? What has changed over the time?
Yep. So going from an individual contributor to a manager, first thing is the human aspects.
Hmm.
When you're working on a project team, you're not dealing with stuff that you are as a leader. So because learning humans is a whole different ball game.
Hmm.
You don't know what's going on in your teams or between teams. You don't know what kind of things people are going through in their personal lives, and that's impacting. It's a complete different ball game altogether. So you got to look at things where you're not always right, but you
Hmm.
are trying to think about stuff more empathetically. um, Try to give more benefit of doubt to people, and in my experience that has worked more. Oftentimes, individual contributor, you've been doing your stuff brilliantly, and that's what got you promoted. And
Hmm.
for most, that could be the story. But as you get into the people management and team management, you're stepping away from some of the day-to-day work, which is
Right.
obvious, but you're also trying to be empathetic and give benefit of doubt and not think everything critically, right? So
Hmm.
if you've been driving a car in one way and then you're sitting on a passenger seat and you're kind of looking at the driver and say, okay, you could have gone here a little bit
Mm,
slower, faster. Give benefit of doubt in places. People will figure it out. Give them the space, give them the opportunities to learn themselves as well. So for me, this has been an area where I had to constantly preach myself as to, okay, yeah, you've been doing it great, very good. You're stepping back, and you need to constantly gauge how much you want to step in versus step out, and try to give that space to people. So that was one kind of constant preaching aspect that I've done to myself. It's a work in progress, and you got to
right.
it's all situational, right? Depends. Sometimes you have to lean in, sometimes you don't lean in,
Yep.
and that's been um, my constant learning as to look at, like, you're on the passenger seat. Can I give benefit of doubt and let people grow?
And it's funny when you say that you're still learning. People who are down there would look at you as like, oh, this person has figured it all out, and he knows everything about the business, which he certainly does. But always a person is always gonna keep on learning. It might not be the technical aspect of thing, but the human aspect of things. So that learning, I'm glad that you are saying that you're still learning about it and that you're not perfect, and no one is, in my opinion. So it's good that everyone on a leadership level is also has this mindset of the change. Like they would always have to keep on changing in order to be relevant for their people, for their business, and whatnot. So anyone who is watching and think that the leaders have got it all figured out, they probably are still, you know, they're still learning. Everyone is,
It's a never ending process, right? Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah, it's situational. So that's one thing too. One thing about leadership in that's been my greatest learning experience is it's all situational.
right.
So you stick to your values, which don't change, but everything else changes according to the situation that you're in, right? So there is
Hmm.
no right or wrong way, or you got to figure it out based on the situation that you're in.
Right. Okay, so you touched a really good point, and maybe I'm gonna go off the script here a little bit to understand your viewpoint about the core beliefs that you said. Every person in their lifetime do develop their core beliefs, right? So, for example, let's say, for example, a new CEO comes in and they want to run a business in a way that does not, go along with the core beliefs. And you are at a leadership position, you have a lot of influence on a lot of teams. So, how do you prioritize business and your personal, uh, let's say, how you have functioned throughout, right? How do
Well,
you manage that?
if 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 what's going on in the business is too far from your values or beliefs, then you got to do something about it, right? Which could be kind of, you know, go in separate ways.
Hmm.
I mean, it is what it is. It can happen sometimes. But if you are in a way, if there are things that you can work on, right, is to, if you have built trust and confidence with your leaders or others, you can discuss. You're not
Hmm.
afraid to bring the elephant in the room and address it, right? Options.
And when you talk about pharma R&D leadership, how do you define good leadership? Not in theory, because everyone knows what the theoretical concepts are, but in
Sure.
practice,
Yeah.
how do you define what do you see is really important in pharma R&D leadership right now?
One thing is to provide visibility to your folks in terms of what the overall impact to the business is. And this is one thing in the pharma R&D leadership that exists, I know, but it's not a given all the time that people understand the impact of what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
from the business standpoint, right? So, for example, you might be developing a product from your perspective, working on the bench, making experiments, presenting data. And I'm talking about some people who are really focused on the bench work. You don't necessarily know what this product's going to be about, what's your target customer base,
Right.
right? How the product's being sold, how much the cost of goods should be, what gross margin should be, what channels do you sell in, right? So there are broader business aspects, and you don't have to worry about providing a lecture about stuff, but you need to ensure that people are intrigued and
Right.
they are developed in a way where they understand the business impact. For me, it's been more like you're doing this, but how is this work important for the business, right? Why are you
Right.
here? Also explaining what's the dynamics of the organization, as to you work in a unit, and that unit, why is that unit doing what it's doing, right? Why
Right.
is that unit existing in the organization? You could have 20 units across the globe, right? So try to give them the feel for where the business is going, how what you're doing is impacting business in what sense. So those kinds of things you kind of try to give them a little more. Uh, just try to give them bigger picture is what I think is important in the R&D leadership world. For the
Right.
technical functions, sometimes it's challenging to get.
Right. And Meet, when you talk about these teams, right, that you have had or you're leading right now, have you built those teams or have you inherited those teams so far?
Both.
Okay.
More inherited than built,
Okay.
and it's been um, yeah, it's a good mix, but more inherited than built.
Okay. So I am more interested on building the team's aspects. So whatever experience that you might have, uh, what are the things that you look in your team member beyond their technical skills when you're hiring them?
Yeah, I really like the questions that people ask, and that gives me an understanding of where their head and mindset is at, right? Um, so one thing is that's very much me. I try to look at that aspect. The other thing is I like to be led by examples. So I like to hear the real world evidence from your work experience, right? Rather than looking at, oh, I am the best team player, but how, right? You give me one
Hmm.
example and that will help me understand if you are a team player or not. So a more
Right.
kind of so it kind of gives a bit of authenticity in terms of what you've done, and it shows that from your experience, or an example, rather than just kind of saying it, and not a kind of blowing the smoke kind of person. So like to really hear the stuff that comes from the examples and experience more, um, more than the technical knowledge. I look for, is this person going to be able to work with others,
Right.
because like I said, you're not going to find out all the answers yourself, and even I'm not, and nobody can. There is so much to learn out there.
Right.
Some things we're going to figure out together, right? And you're going to figure
Absolutely.
out on your own. So you're going to be able to work with people. Are you resourceful in tapping into those resources and getting things done versus trying to find all your answers yourself? It's good to be intrigued about finding answers yourself, but you need to be able to look at resources outside and
Right.
be able to get things done. So more for me, it's more, can the person work with others? Does the person have the motivation? So that's another aspect, how motivated is the person. And it's hard to understand from the interviews. Sometimes you're more
Right.
looking, you figure this part out more as you work with somebody, but you
True.
try to do as much as you can through the process. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And because I know I also mentor some of the folks who are interviewing, and majority of them come back to me after the interview and they're like, they asked me questions or on if I have any questions for the company. And they go like, not at the moment, you know? And I think that is the most important part of when you're interviewing someone is to understand what they are doing and how does it get along with your own personal beliefs and what you want to get out of this position is really
Yeah.
important, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you touched on that point, and I wish and hope people do more and more, be more and more inquisitive, do some research on the company, on why they want to apply to that company, and how can they be a good fit, or even if they're a good fit, like not just for the sake of applying, but also understanding what kind of value would company bring to them and what they can bring to the company that they would be joining. So that's great. And I know pharma R&D is really high pressure. The data you need, the timeline, the regulatory officers, they're pretty rigorous and strict. They need everything by this time. So since it's such a fast-paced, dynamic industry, how do you ensure psychological safety of your team while they're going through this difficult time, right? There's so much to do in such a tight timeline. How do we make sure that they feel safe, they feel heard, even if they're burnt out? What are the things we can do in order to manage
Yeah.
that?
I mean, as you said, the times are tough. There are more layoffs out there. There are less people, more work to do.
Hmm.
And it can be stressful. You got to look at ways of finding resources outside of your team if there is really a burnout going on, right?
Hmm.
You got to look at prioritizing what can be accomplished and what can't be, and you have to be okay with the portion that doesn't get accomplished. Giving people the space and time, in terms of they can manage their own
Hmm.
pace and time, although there are pressures from the project perspective, but you can look at how you can unwind and take a bit of a break and do stuff. But those are like general things. There will be pressure. You can't change a lot of things about what needs to be done from a business perspective. You just have to find a way where you can lean in or provide resources outside of your team or strategize a bit more, negotiate a bit with your leadership to look at A
Hmm.
versus B. Um, those things I would try. I've been trying, and it's sometimes still there's a lot of pressure, and it's only gonna get more and more. So you're not you at the end of the day, um, it's going to be a challenge to find that balance. Um, you got to work through it. You can lean in a bit more if needed, and be there, provide them the support. At least try to keep the noise out so that
Hmm.
there is more focus on the work than the noise. And the noise is real. Having worked through many companies, it happens when a few humans work together, there's going to be a
Hmm.
noise, right? So you got to
Right.
look at avoiding noise for your team so your team can focus more on the real stuff. So
Right.
that's been a huge help in my experience.
Yeah. And I just want to close that out with saying, like, it's never easy. And I think it's always there, right? There's never going to be a time where there are no deadlines or, data is needed by this time. Regulatory needs some data. FDA needs to get this data by this time. And it's always going to be there, especially with pharma R&D projects that you're working on. So, uh, it's important to take some time off. It's important to talk about the things that are happening on the floor with the leaders who you think would understand your position. Of course, the most they can do is give you the energy, give you the, like motivation to get through it. But there's so little they can do when it comes to business needs as well. So that's good. I want to touch some points, that have some questions on aspiring leaders who might be coming in and are looking at you for some advice. So, what do you think are the skill sets that is going to determine the next generation pharma leaders when you look at the landscape right now?
Yeah, sure. So when you say skill set, we're not going to get into specific skills of like a science or technology, right? There will be
Hmm.
there'll be there'll be innovations and things are going to change. You'll find new stuff every day,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to have answers to everything from a technical standpoint, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the skills that will help people is to, if they are more curious over time and maintain that curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
that helps. That helps a lot. Even though you don't have answers to everything, you will find ways to get those answers through your curiosity. Um, People who are willing to work with others, as I mentioned earlier, it's a huge, highly underrated skill, I would say, um, to be able to work with others in a productive way, right?
Right.
Some of the skills you're gonna have to look to negotiate constantly.
Mm-hmm.
uh, it sometimes it's not a given. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to negotiate and try to look for win-win situations across the things, um, because there'll be the other folks working with you might have their own interest or benefits. So you got to look for ways to kind of constantly negotiate and work out a win-win situation
Right.
from whatever you get. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in today's world and going forward, getting knowledge is not difficult. It used to be like you would read books and try to remember 30 years
Yeah.
back, right? But today you can get knowledge with the click of a button. There is more focus on the
Absolutely.
application.
Mm-hmm.
So if you try to focus on application a bit more, that's where I guess you can create more impact. So in general, these skills kind of help you get there. From a technical perspective, I think there's a big buzz around what AI would take from you and what it won't. Uh, I think some things AI will take very easily from
Most
people, and
definitely.
so and I believe in that. So all kinds of stuff. So this is why I guess how you use these things to make an impact is where there will be more focus than getting knowledge and doing it. So application is going to be a big deal than acquiring
Mm.
knowledge, right? So I think these areas will help. In general, if you try to stay out of the comfort zone, um, that's a big trait that keeps one growing.
Mm-hmm.
I think you find ways to find within your organization, even in the work that you do, try to see how you can find adjacencies to grow
Mm-hmm.
into. And that kind of constantly keeps you out of the comfort zone, because the technical learning can be enormous. It's never ending. You're going to have to look for adjacencies and kind of grow across. And so look
Right.
for the opportunities to grow out of your comfort zone.
That's great. And that was kind of my next question to you. I think you covered it really well. I was going to ask you if I were uh, a student just joining as a scientist in an organization, right? What would your uh, suggestions be on me to develop for the first 5 to 7 years, which I feel is really important? Do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, so first 5 to 7 years, learning curve is steep, right? You're gonna everything is gonna be a learning for you. So look where you're learning and how much your growth is on the technical side, but you're also looking at staying out of the comfort zone, as I said earlier. So look at like if you've been doing one thing for a long time, try to find ways to do more things and other things than what you've been doing. So you can work with your manager to find positions or find roles that might help you learn more things. Even within your role or position, you can look to learn more stuff outside of your core responsibilities. It could be
Mm-hmm.
different kinds of project. Could be the same technical role, but different kinds of projects. You could be looking at different roles altogether, but try to find that growth area. If you hit a plateau, it doesn't hurt to look outside as well. I mean, it works both ways, right? Between an employee and an employer. So it's the onus is on the leaders to keep people motivated and interested. and feeling like they're growing. And if it doesn't happen, you got to look outside of your organization and see where the growth happens, right? So,
Hmm.
and when you look for these things, your growth may not be just technical in nature all the
Right.
time. It could be, you could be growing from like the other aspects, right? Leadership aspects, project management aspects. It could be,
Right.
it could be other things. So, but the key is to kind of keep growing, looking for opportunities to do new stuff, newer things, than just doing one thing. I've seen people who are just doing like, let's say, quality control, just the raw material testing, and they would spend 20 years doing raw material testing. There's nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah.
that you're gonna hit a plateau where it becomes autonomous, that you come to
Hmm.
work, you do this, and you go home. The growth is gonna be impacted, and by the time you realize, you'll be kind of 20 years in the industry just doing raw material testing. So you got to look at
Right.
things to grow into constantly.
Right. And I think one major thing when you talk about the people who are doing the same things for 20, 25 years, I also see them, right? But it also kind of trickles back to the personality that they have. Maybe they're happy with what they're doing, for 20 25 years they do not want the change, and that is completely fine too. So being aware of yourself is really important, is to understand, are you a person who like constant change? Because being in a state where you're constantly changing is also not an easy place to be at, because it's pretty uncomfortable. If you're doing the new things every day, it's amazing for your growth, but it might not be for everyone. So that is also something that people should talk about when they talk about change and like taking up more responsibilities. Yes, it's amazing for your career if you look at yourself being a leader or a manager at a top pharma company. But if it's not you, don't stress about it. It's like, it's okay if you want to keep on doing what you're doing. If it works for you, works for you, right? Don't listen to people who'd say otherwise. But yeah, having that self awareness is really important, is what I feel.
Yeah, there's a big point that you just touched on, is you, right? and
Yeah.
and you so motivation you can find from leaders and others. They can try to push you into directions, and you might be lucky if they do that.
Right.
Sometimes they don't, right? And you're gonna have to. So it depends on how much fire in the belly you have, and it's kind of debatable that sometimes fire in the belly is in you, and I can't put fire in your belly, right? It's gotta be
Right.
there,
Absolutely.
and it's gotta do its own stuff, not like external motivation factors. But sometimes you get lucky. Destiny pushes you into
Yeah.
like new things, and sometimes leader pushes you. So those things can help you in kind of big ways, more than you realize sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, and when I want to also close this out by giving a full circle back moment on our conversation. For you, Meet, you have been here for 20 plus years now in the US, coming in from India with just 3 bags, as you said, and now to being a big pharma leader, right? Being a leader in big pharma. Sorry. Uh, what are the things that
Thank
you
you.
are, what are the things you're most proud of?
Well, if you look back, and this is where I'm gonna use Steve Jobs' connect the dots thing, right? You look at things like when you're doing it, you don't know how one thing's gonna feed into the other, but you look
Hmm.
back and you say, okay, well, at the moment, I didn't know this is what I'm doing. It ended up being a great stepping stone, right? So lots of moments like that. Some moments I'm proud of is some of the risks I took.
Hmm.
I did take risks when things were comfortable. And this is kind of thing, saying as like staying out of the comfort zone. And those moments happened for me. So I had moments where I could have stayed comfortable where I was, but I was not getting the opportunity. Like I was not growing as much or as fast as I would have liked, and I started to look outside of the organization at times, right? So I grew within organizations, but there were risks I took to jump out, and some of the decisions could have been worse, but then you move on and kind of figure it out. So I've had those decision moments in my life that I took more risky position, and
Mm-hmm.
it paid off in longer run. Uh, those moments were tense and
Mm-hmm.
could be stressful, for one, but looking backwards, those dots were very important in terms of learning, gaining courage and confidence, because once you step out of your comfort zone is when you realize that, oh, there is risk, there is so much stress, but then it worked out. So I changed jobs at times where things were comfortable, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
and right into landing into a job, there were moments of like downsizing and stuff that I had to work through and then work for other things. So look for other things. So it has been kind of at times been bumpy and stressful, but looking backwards, it all paid off in a grand way. So you got to look at um, taking risks, and those moments have been rewarding for me in long run. In those moments, I was stressed, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
but it works out. You got to trust the process and look to be agile. That's the only way to go. I think for
Yep.
me, it has been.
That's the key. Be agile. Even with your life, it's not just the projects, but with your life, it's also really helpful. Taking that risks. If I mean, I am a person who have taken a lot of risks, and some of them hasn't paid off, right? Like, if I'm being
Yeah,
completely honest, some of
yeah,
them might not pay off, but that is how life happens, and you have to just work through it and learn from the mistakes that you make, and keep on working to be a better person every other day. So
yeah.
that's great.
Having said that, there are more risks to take. I don't think we have
Always,
taken enough risks. I haven't, so gotta train myself to take more risks in future. So we'll see.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just one thing: think through it before you take risks. Make sure you have a good
Well,
pros and cons list.
you'll never have it figured out. So you're
That's
gonna have
true.
to step in and then see how things go. So
Fair enough.
I think if you say I have it all figured out, I have all my pros and cons, it doesn't work out that way. You just gotta get
Right.
in there and see what happens.
See what happens. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And when you say that, I also want you to empower some international students who might be watching this. And they're trying to navigate their career right now, right, as we speak. And they're dealing with this self doubt, the sense of uncertainty every day that they are going to work or going to college and whatnot. How would you empower them right now? And what would you like to tell them about the U.S. pharma industry?
Well, the pharma industry is going to be, it is growing, right? It will be changing over time, but it's going to grow. And if you are in the US, right, it's a land of opportunities. Whatever you may call it, things have changed over times and it will keep changing in future as well. But you will find opportunities. I would rather be focused on getting my foot in the door, right?
Hmm.
Try to learn, get whatever you can. You got to start somewhere and then things will work out over time. Not be too worried about this is what I want to do and it's not lining up. In the beginning, you got to get started wherever you can, and then you will figure it out. There will be ample opportunities to change course if you need to, and find ways to get things going. You don't have to worry about finding the most the best thing to start with, right? Start somewhere, uh, and it will happen. Focus on learning and growth, and try to stay out of the comfort zone once you land somewhere, right? So
Right.
just kind of those are the things, and believe in destiny and yourself. It will work out eventually, but you got to work through. um, Building networks is helpful, um, but not everybody in your network will be helping you, but you got to work. You still need to keep building
Right.
that network so you can help each other and figure it out together.
Yep. Absolutely. Those are some golden pieces of advice. Hopefully, people understand that and be more proactive in finding the right opportunity for them. And as you said, stepping getting that first step in the door is really important. And from there on, you just don't know where the life is going to take you. So just go with it and learn at every step. And Meet, I absolutely enjoyed this conversation with you, and you have given incredible insights. Those were all my questions that I had for you, and I hope I covered majority of it, all the way from your journey from India to US to now being a leader in a big pharma. So thank you for taking out some time and having this conversation. I'm sure it's gonna help a lot many people after this.
Yeah. I enjoyed the conversation as well, Janish. It was a pleasure, and thanks for not calling a big leader and not calling me a leader in the pharma. I mean, we are all somewhere in the journey, right? So
Right. Hey,
we'll see.
I'm already predicting the future, Meet. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Let's see how many risks you can take.
I'm sure I'll
All
keep you
right.
in the loop. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Meet. I
See you.
appreciate it. See ya.
Take it easy. Bye bye.
Bye.